What would be your advice, whether for your peer government officials or for entrepreneurs? What would be your advice when those countries want to embark on transforming their economies to make them digital and inclusive? Where should they start, and what should be their priority? I'm going to start with you, please, Mr. Kant.
Firstly, the platform must be publicly owned. That's critical. And secondly, allow a lot of private sector to do a huge amount of innovation on top of that. Look at a young entrepreneur like Vijay. He's going to have 500 million bank accounts by 2020. So phenomenal growth because you've been able to create a public platform. Number two, I think must be clearly realized that the days of physical banks are dead. They're dead and gone. In India, 3 years down the line, there will be, if there are physical banks, they'll be irrelevant. Everybody will be doing digital transaction through digital means. Mm-hmm. And thirdly, what it would prove is that India will throw up a huge amount of data. As it is, when I said our mobile data consumption is more than US and China put together. So data will be so enormous, and therefore, the biggest revolution, to my mind, will come in from young financial technology companies. And we have about close to 1,000 fintech startups in India. They will be disrupting the world of financial technology, but they'll be disrupting the world of data analytics. So data analytics would lead to financial inclusion for everyone, and that would really mean a larger flow of resources of the banking system digitally to people below poverty line. This would also lead to flow of resources to MSMEs and SMEs who have traditionally and historically had a better record of repayments than the large Indian conglomerates. And therefore, we would see a huge amount of disruption. If I use my mobile and if I use my own biometric, if I'm using a credit card, on a transaction, I'm paying 3.5%. If I'm using a debit card, I'm paying 1.5%. If I'm using my own biometric and I'm using my own mobile, I'm paying virtually 0%. 0%. So the next biggest disruption India will actually do will be to wipe out credit cards, debit cards, ATM machines. We'll be all transacting at zero cost using my mobile and my own biometric. That will be the biggest disruption. No physical banks, no credit cards, no debit cards, no ATM machines. All transactions will be through mobile using biometrics. Huge data analytics, financial tech companies, young fintech entrepreneurs like Vijay Sharma will penetrate global markets. And that is the future.
Wow. The future is bright, future is India model. So I totally agree. And I want to tell you as a takeaway, the idea is to give a takeaway. If you're thinking for your country or for your business, next big thing, and it is not mobile first and mobile only, you are actually not thinking it correctly. You have to reset your vision and point of view to start from mobile and end towards mobile itself. Just like we just heard Mr. Khan talking about that payments which are card or postless, that is the reason that the growth happened. I'm giving you context here. Month of November 2017, we identified number of transactions from central bank. RBI shares the number of transactions, the data. Paytm accounted for 2 times number of transactions all bank credit cards put together strengths. And it was a little less percentage than total number of debit card transactions that happen in this country. Now, that is happening possible because we are saying you don't need any extra hardware or any extra toolkit with yourself, but your mobile and a QR code. So my single takeaway of the last 5 years and last 5 years bet has been take a bet on the mobile, take a bet on smartphone, it is going to be there. And take a bet on smartphones and data. Don't take a bet on feature phone. That's a puck has moved away from there. Nearly. It doesn't mean that there won't be credit or credit card based systems. They will become digital in nature. They will become that when you are scanning a QR code, you would have a credit opportunity. You would have an opportunity to disperse credit in an unprecedented way, and you would have an opportunity to disperse many other financial services. For example, when you scan a Paytm QR code in a shop to pay, that's the method that we talk here as a Paytm model. You have a choice to keep the payment due next month. So it's like a pay it later. It's like a Paytm postpaid product, which is a credit product effectively. So democratization of financial services, whether you talk about lending, wealth, or insurance, is possible only when your model is fully digital, whatsoever it is, originated and terminated completely in digital cycle. I think that is where the trick is. And second is, consumers are looking to do more and more things by themselves. Look at yourself. One point of time, we used to get our flight tickets from some travel agent. The ticket used to be coming in an envelope. Now it comes in an email done by an assistant in the office itself. Then the email we used to take as a printout to the desktop check-in counter, and now we don't take it to the check-in counter. So we first eliminated the person who was a travel agent as a need of printing tickets. Then we eliminated check-in counter. Now we are saying that we choose the seat also and enter the detail of passport, and we just show the QR code at a security counter and get in the aircraft. What is happening in this meta is consumers want to do more and more things by themselves. The world is moving DIY. The world is moving thinner, smarter devices. That's the world that you're going towards. All your solutions have to give power to the common citizen. All your solutions have to give power to common merchant. All your solutions and businesses opportunities are in the young startups. So public good platforms is the base platform for it. So 2 takeaways, all the mobile and do it yourself.
Yeah,
Terrific. Thank you. Arvind, please.
I think Mr. Kant and Vijay summarized a few things, but mobile first, India has done that. That's a great lesson. We add net 110, 120 net new smartphones every year. That's an aspirational number, as well as shows the progress. From 155th in data consumption, India is now top 3 in the world. That's a hard number. So that's how fast mobile consumption data has moved and mobile smartphone penetration has moved. Number one. Number two, platforms, Mr. Kant already talked about. Along with that, the platforms, I think the biggest 2 components of the platforms that are lessons for any other country is, number one is, even if you need to redo your identity systems, do an identity system reboot. Come to digital. Many countries started off and they have a legacy. I think if India can do it, any country can do it. Yeah. 1.2 billion people, that's the continent of Africa. So, and it shows the investment has a return. So digital identity is number one. Number two, have a non-rent seeking payment system. Now that's a very loaded statement. What MDRs, Mr. Kant talked about, merchant discount rates, India has disrupted that completely. From the ATM machine to the POS machines, to a completely light infrastructure. If you are in a policy side, you have to really look at it. If the rent seeking becomes zero on the digital infrastructure, the monetization of that can happen in many other ways. India has led it, but you've seen China, some smaller countries in Africa do it, and the rent seeking only serves a little bit short-term purpose, but the long-term goal of giving credit, democratizing credit, banking, financial inclusion in general, gets served, and that's where the real, the business lies. So that's the second big advice, and third big is, I think, what we have seen is the policy framework has to be very, very agile. It's very important to have that policy framework. Regulation and policy generally lags technology, but in this case, it can be the enabling environment, and there has to be a good balance between regulation and innovation. And India has benefited from that. Indian entrepreneurs have benefited from that. So those are the lessons at a very high level from India. I do want to add one number to that, and this is a number that combines a lot of things that we are talking about. November 2016, or October 2016, just before demonetization happened in India. India's homegrown payment network, which is called UPI, completely interoperable, works on a smartphone as well as a non-smartphone, by the way. because India still has 600 million people who don't have a smartphone. Until that time, we want to make it very inclusive. So it works on a non-smartphone, $8 phone, and that's very important. Clocked in October 2016, clocked 100,000 transactions. In November 2017, 106 million transactions. Just absorb the growth from 100,000 to 106 million. That's the growth we have seen. So, and so shows that, if you have the right policies, the right environment, right incentives, these things work, and people do move. So the consumer behavior is moving towards that. Citizens want that ability to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Porsche, please.
So I think 2 points very valid, right? I mean, mobile devices are going to be key. And that's why we actually have, for the whole world, mobile development or mobile application development happening in India from MasterCard. The other one which Mr. Khan talked about was data. And data is also going to be very key. And we're going to data analytics for the whole world from here. I think the form factors will change. Pay before, pay now, and pay later as concepts will always remain. That's never going to change. I think what will change is the form factor of how you deliver it, which in India is more and more going to be through a mobile device. And at the same time, you're going to have different ways of economics as volumes grow. Because without an economic, you can't create any kind of infrastructure. There has to be some economic model, which we've seen, for example, as things like the merchant discount rates for debit cards have come down to as low as 0.25 for fuel. And you see a well over 1,000% growth. And that's the kind of thing which you start making daily acceptance, daily usage of customers. But I think the biggest impact that we have been seeing as a network is the impact of combining all these things together in terms of what it does for smart cities, urban mobility, and transit at a faster pace than what you would normally see.
Thank you. Agnesha, do you want to comment on this quickly?
Yes, I do want to comment because I very much like what Vijay said. That we should do like two things that we should remember: are mobile and do it yourself. So that's why it is so important what I mentioned before, and to put a special attention on the education of the consumers, that they know how to consciously and how to secure use all those digital instruments you're providing. And I would be interested, because we do in Poland create an initiative, public-private partnership with the private sector, with banking and financial sector, in order to support the clients, the consumers, not only to educate them, but also to provide them secure tools, instruments. And this is also happening at the European level. Does such any initiative exist? And do you have any cybersecurity policy in place?
Yep. So in India, demonetization was the days when you had to bring significant large digital first natives to do a complex transaction of financial services. It is very multi-step jump in a single step. And we had done a program called Each One Teach One. So college students understand faster than their parents understand. So we said, if you do this, I'm going to give you a certificate that you're a good guy. So gamification of those people who were teaching others and giving them campus icon and upgraded icons and virtual goods and then giving a physical certificate, that worked out incredibly well. We ended up building a thing called Paytm Force, and they become our asset today. So that's like hundreds of thousands. Actually, the number is 600,000 people in this country connect with us to ask something that they can take to the masses. So again, I think the power of do-it-yourself, power of crowdsourcing, power of network effect of letting people do it is underestimated, because all the time as a business or as a government, we sort of expect that us to solve the problem of people. India's demographic dividend is actually that point when young and committed young entrepreneurs or young people take this as a purpose and take it to the masses. So the training or cybersecurity, now the question is, so we use them to train and send the videos and explanations what they should take care. And that works out. Otherwise, by the way, I mean, we're talking about demonetization here, so I want to give you a little bit of context of those days. Imagine in those 2 months, all the digital transactions are at a many times over ever in peak movement. And many times first is happening as a consumer. The single most fiasco that you want to avoid that moment is any kind of hack whatsoever, even if people are calling gullible people and pretending to become a bank, right? So it is not a moment of where you have a normal day. It is a moment that will generate another layer of panic. Nothing happened. Nothing absolutely happened. It is the incredible power of India's youth and our governance that we could take care of such a large event where digital first time digital ended up doing financial transactions. So I think the works out is that you teach people and make your citizen part of your team is the idea.
Arvid, if you want to come
Just
quickly,
quick-
because I want to give the floor
Just
for
a
questions.
quick comment on that. I think in computer science, I'm a computer scientist by profession. There is an algorithm called divide and conquer.
I thought it was in politics only.
It's a fundamental algorithm of computer science, and in that, the algorithm is, I think, what you're talking about, Vijay, has been put to work not only by private but government also. I think government is. This is the great thing that government. We have one of the senior most officials of government of India sitting here, and the private sector startups competing for who's doing more innovation. And the lesson here is that, what he's talking about 600K, the government of India, the HRD ministry, which controls technical education, also started a program like this. 2 million students were enrolled to do 10 more people, to train 10 more people in cyber literacy and digital literacy, financial literacy. And they ended up doing 20 million households. They were told you have to touch one household, register that household on a website, and 20 million households were covered by 2 million students. Remember, India has about 200 million, 220 million households. So if you cover just 20 million with students, that's 10% of the population. So a lot of those strategies were deployed, and a lot of good effect is coming, and digital economy is showing uptake that like never before.